Welcome to Data versus Commerce, where we explore the messy middle between database and doorstep. I'm Matt Johnson.
And I'm Floyd Blaikie. Let's dig in. Matt, I have some bad news.
What?
I've decided, and no offense, it's not personal, but I've decided I'm going to replace you with an AI podcast co-host.
I knew the day was coming.
No, I'm just joking, of course, because although I love using AI for a lot of things, let's be real, AI cannot replace the way that humans think and operate and build expertise and frankly make art. If I see any more AI generated art, I might throw up in my mouth a little. But what I want to get at is that this is something that I think we share as core values. And something else that we share is that we work in the same place. So surprised everybody out there. Matt, have you talked with our leadership much about how they are thinking about AI and how that does or does not replace what humans do at Pivotree, where we both work?
Oh yeah. Well, we've talked about this a lot. As I'm sure any listener would agree, like we're all going through this AI transformation at the same time, and every organization's handling it differently. We, as a technology company, we're probably deeper in it than most, I would say, in terms of our adoption rate and how we're thinking about it. And I think one of the things that I love about our leadership team's philosophy around how to use AI is that we're really approaching it as, I don't know if you can see that behind me, RI is better or greater than AI. RI meaning real human intelligence, driving the business outcomes that AI enable us to deliver to, whether it's internally with our teams or with our clients, our customers. So what does that mean, right? To me, it means that the AI only works as good as the context that it's fed. And where is that context coming from? It's coming from real human authorities, real human experts who are making these incredible tools work to the best of their ability.
That's exactly right. So I had the chance to sit down with our CEO and our chief architect. So let's get into it. So most of what you're hearing about AI right now boils down to one promise: fewer humans and same output. That is, it seems, the pitch on every analyst call this quarter. I don't think that we're buying it necessarily. It's not because we're overly sentimental about jobs. It's because the math doesn't work. The companies that are actually winning with AI are not the ones who fired their experts. They're the ones who handed those experts something a bit sharper. And that's the bet that our CEO, Bill Nardo, and our chief architect, Joel Farquhar, are making. They are calling it real intelligence plus artificial intelligence, which I like because naming a thing is a power marketing move. But the order matters. Real intelligence first, built over years, built over decades in the heads of people who've actually shipped the work. So welcome, Bill. Welcome, Joel. I'm just going to open it up with asking you to tell us in your own words, what is the Pivotree stance on AI and why are we taking it?
Yeah, let me start by saying, we didn't coin the term real intelligence. We've been talking about that topic for years around our industry expertise, the domain knowledge. I think increasingly, there's evidence and a growing sentiment that AI without judgment, AI without real intelligence is not going to be nearly as effective. We've observed this. We've seen, what happens when you give a domain expert a tool like AI, what else they can do, how far they can take it. And it's been quite remarkable. Just again, how much more folks can work on higher level thinking and take that domain expertise to another level. The AI tools are allowing them to spend less time on commodity like work. So yeah, we're huge proponents of it's what we've been spending the last 5 years assembling is experts. The last thing we would want to do is have those experts exit the building before they actually get a chance to apply that knowledge, leveraging some of the tools that Joel and the team have been constructing.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to things are changing for sure. We can all feel it, but for us, it's not about you're going to need less people. I think for a lot of it is how fast can we accelerate value delivery for either internal the things we do, but especially for our customers. Our customers are starting to expect not that they need less people, or not that necessarily that they would pay less for things, but that we would be able to do more in less amount of time. And that's really the perspective we're taking. And we're trying to find ways that in the things that we do, how do we accelerate so that our customers can deliver on their roadmaps? They have 3-year roadmaps, but now it's like, okay, well, can we really look at that, break it down, and instead of a 3-year roadmap, try to deliver some of that value in 2 years or less?
There like a point in time or a interaction or a conversation in particular where it just really kind of crystallized that this was the direction we needed to take of augmentation and not replacement?
Look, I think that was our entry point, to be honest. We've believed that we have some of the best experts in the fields that they work in. We saw AI as a tool. It is another tool. It's a very powerful tool, but we saw it as a tool, and the question was how we leverage it. But for me, I think some of the realization too was, especially in these early days, like AI doesn't do exactly what you need it to do all by itself. You need intelligent operators prompting it, directing it, and guiding it. And when it fails to do what you needed it to do, you need those experts to get it back on track. And in some cases, where AI isn't quite ready, those experts know how to get the job done. So there's going to be this natural evolution of AI is going to continue to get more powerful. It's going to be able to do more things autonomously. It's not there today, so you can't get it working all by itself. You need those experts. I think what's going to be interesting to observe over the next couple of years is how those experts elevate their game. As they start to push more and more into the AI capabilities, now what else are they going to be able to do with that extra capacity they have?
Yeah, I think for me, there was a turning point, when I first started, because I have a traditional software development background. That's where I came from. And now I've gone into architecture and supported, our customers in their architectures and internal. But when I started to first play with some of the sort of second generation of code assistance tools like Anthropic's Claude, and you just start to see the power that these tools are going to create, and what we're starting to call a little bit of like, how do you habituate? How do you start to think about using AI to solve some of your bespoke problems very quickly? But what we're finding is that scale is growing. So, we have people within our organization that have very specific domain knowledge, and we don't think that domain knowledge is going away. We specialize in enterprise e-commerce across the full delivery chain, and those domain experts can now leverage AI to build solutions or design solutions significantly quicker. And that's really where we're starting to see the power, is if when we put the right tools in the hands of some of these domain experts, is just some of the creativity we're seeing and some of the solutions that we're seeing, the stuff that would have taken months previously. Now we can stand something up very quickly. And some of these things are just end up being throwaway too, where we solve a problem very quickly using some of these tools, but then you move on to the next challenge. So how do you build it in your mindset that you're thinking, how can AI solve this problem faster for me so that I can move on to the next challenge? And it starts to become about, how does Pivotree as a whole just do more and scale faster than we've been able to scale before, because we're not a big company. And so scaling has always been a challenge for us. So now we can scale without having to go hire, 100 more people. We can really start to deliver a lot more with a smaller set of team, but that doesn't mean reducing the size of the team. That means delivering more with what we have.
I think that's been the most interesting observations with some of our clients is when we walk in the front door and we're going to perform a particular solution, service, outcome for them that we've done for years. We're already known to be an expert in some of these areas. Systems integration is a great example. When you introduce AI assisted systems integration, you still have experts asking questions, you still have them guiding the process. But what gets our customer excited is if they can get it twice as fast at a reduced cost, they're actually not looking to necessarily pocket the money. They're saying, well, what else can I do? Like, I have a budget for this year. I've got a roadmap. Are you telling me I can get more of the roadmap done? I'm happy to spend the same amount of money and actually get more for that money. And I think this was also a really interesting observation is our customers want to take advantage of this capability if it means I can get more inside the same budget.
I think you said one of the words you said that we're really hearing customers talk about is outcomes. Like, everything we are doing now is more about outcomes. It's becoming much less about the billable hour. It's not about going and hiring, I need 20 people and then we're going to charge you X amount an hour to deliver that service. It's much more about what is the outcome that they're trying to achieve? And if you can show me that I can get that outcome at a certain time, at a certain cost, with more certainty, then leveraging AI or not leveraging AI. The advantage for us is if we leverage AI, we can deliver a lot quicker. And in a business like ours, that means we can, we can grow our customer base, but we can also be more profitable.
So clearly, there's a really strong business case for this approach of augmentation versus replacement. When you look at the other side of it, when you hear from folks in organizations that are worried about AI, it goes from a business framing to a very human framing. Is there like what is it about the human framing about the impact on people that made you kind of believe in this approach versus any other approach?
Yeah, I think if you look at a lot of the companies that are reducing headcount and blaming I think to some degree they're talking about labor that they've already commoditized, and AI is just really accentuating that for them. We've never talked about our people as commoditized labor. I think that there's a difference between valuing the knowledge, the judgment, and as Joel said, we're not a 10,000 person organization. We're a very lean, efficient organization, and we're looking at how we bring tools in to make them more powerful, more capable. From the purely human side, a big part of what we're trying to do too right now is reflect on, if we enable these folks with tools, they become more valuable themselves. If they decide it's time to move on and go somewhere else, they're going to have a set of skills that are going to be highly valued. So for us, there's an element of, we're going to grow and do this and learn together. Let's upskill folks. Let's give them tools and capabilities that'll be valued outside of here. Let's try and get the best projects. Let's try and make this the place they want to stay to exercise those skills. But the world is changing, and what we'd really like to do is make sure our people are best equipped for that change, make sure we as a company are in demand, and the individuals in the organization with those skills are in demand.
Yeah, I suspect a lot of the large companies that are, that we see, a lot of announcements laying off huge headcounts is I think a lot of them are trying to get ahead of what they think is coming. And so they're betting on, if we get rid of all these people, that we will become, we will be able to leverage AI to replace them. I think a lot of them are going to find out that there are efficiencies to be gained, but we're still in early stages. Like we've had a number, we've been, we designated, we had a plan this year where Q1 was going to be heavily focused on experimentation. And for every experiment where we've seen we've gained efficiencies, there's other ones that we go, whoa, that didn't actually save us anything. In some cases, it took more time. So it's really tough sometimes, like as you're going through these experimentation phases, to really nail in, okay, yes, that's a winner. That's an area where we are going to become more efficient. Um, but I think it's going to be a long time before we truly start to see people's roles being replaced by AI, if at all. I think similar to sort of the dot-com boom, or the rise of the internet, let's say, not the dot-com boom because we know how that ended, but the rise of the internet was like, it did create a lot of new jobs, and I think AI is going to do the same thing. It's like we're still in that early stage of trying to figure out what some of those new jobs are.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Joel. And I think again, one of my observations coming out of this is, I think AI is going to drive inefficiencies out of some of these processes. Like there's just a lot of waste in technology today. Deployments that take longer, cost too much. At the end of the day, what Joel said earlier around, people want outcomes. The faster we can get them to some outcomes, and the outcome isn't, was just on time and on budget. It's how much did it cost to get that problem solved? How do we get the waste out of it? How do we get all the rework out of it? In fact, I think one of the best examples, we've been honing in on a lot is, how do we get requirements gathered more crisply, faster, more accurately? If we get that done right and we can move into the development phase, we can spend a lot less time on rework. In fact, one of the biggest advantages we've seen recently is prototyping. I mean, if you can actually stand something up and show people, this is what I'm thinking you're saying, is this what you're saying? We can reduce a lot of inefficiencies and get to outcomes quicker. And my sense is CFOs are fed up paying for things that don't work. So if they have higher confidence that what they're spending on is going to work, I think they're going to spend more money. But I don't think they want to be the ones that are doing the experiments. I don't think they want to, take a wait and see. The more confidence we can give them going into an initiative that they're going to get the outcome they're looking for, I think the more likely business is going to spend. And I think AI is really going to help our hyper intelligent contextual individuals drive to those outcomes quicker and reduce the friction and the inefficiency in getting there.
Yeah, for sure. One of the, I mean, Bill hates the word cool, so we shouldn't call it cool, but
I don't think customers buy cool. I think customers buy
yeah, and
outcomes.
I agree. We can't all be doing cool things, but some of it's pretty cool. But I think one of the most amazing things we see, and we're seeing customers even do this back to us, one of the challenging things in our business has always been, like Bill said, getting the right requirements, right?
Mm.
And we invented the agile process entirely for, like, you know, waterfall was terrible because you would gather a bunch of requirements over a long period of time, and then you would spend 7 to 8 months developing something, and then you would show the customer and say, here it is, it's all done, and the customer would go, that's not what I meant at all, right? So then we invented agile, which is, okay, we're going to show you a little bit over a period of time and try to correct course every time we go off. But now with AI prototyping, customers even are coming to us and saying, this is what we mean. This is how we want it to look. This is how we want it to behave. So they're using tools to quickly show us much better what they mean when they're, instead of us relying entirely on words. And I think that's where, as we start to harness that capability, and even now we're seeing that some people in our organization is they can stand up something very quickly that solves their particular problem, and they're not necessarily software engineers, but then it really does need to come into a process of where people that do have software engineering capabilities, do have architecture capabilities, that can look at what they've prototyped or POC'd and start to productionize it so that we can, so that it scales, so that it's secure, so that it can, that it can be monitored, so that it can be run as a service. And ideally, in our world, that maybe we could monetize it in some way, right? But that's some of the big sort of transformation we're seeing really happen quickly.
We've talked a lot about kind of what happens down the road. Things get delivered faster, we can prototype more, we can get tightly aligned farther earlier in the process. But what does it look like within the organization to upskill someone, to augment their existing real intelligence? What are we doing in a really concrete way to give people those skills today?
I think the biggest thing we've done is said everybody needs to get on an educational path of understanding it, from basic training and understanding of how to leverage them correctly, which ones to choose for what workload. There's an education process, and then there's a training process, right? A training is actually hands-on, having mentors, having individuals that maybe are a little further advanced, helping people work through and solve the challenges. Because as I said, right now, AI is not at the point where you drop it in your question, your query, and you get a perfect answer every time. The more complex the challenge, the more help and the more guidance and the more judgment it needs. So, we've really tried to advance a collection of individuals in the organization to be our real leaders in practical application. And now we're really trying to get the rest of the organization exposed to, where do I apply this? How do I use it? And when I run into a roadblock, who can I go to get some help? So it's really it's a company-wide education process that's going on right now.
Yeah, I think one thing Bill maybe doesn't speak to, and he's probably the biggest person responsible for this, but it's a culture shift. Like, it's a culture shift where we've allowed, probably, in some respects, maybe more lenience than we should. Definitely more lenience than a lot of organizations are. Like, I know my wife works for a very strict organization where there's like no AI allowed anywhere. And it's like, okay, what we're more like, really encouraging our employees to try to experiment, to see where they can find efficiencies, because we both learned, as I would say, Bill and I were both very early adopters to testing and experimenting, as we learned the only way you're going to figure this stuff out is if you're trying different things, different ways, different, you got to start to learn the capabilities of what it can do. And, if you're trying to analyze a large data set, it's a lot faster to ask Claude to analyze it for you. Or if you're trying to, I don't tend to use it to write emails and that kind of stuff because I don't find it's any more efficient. But if somebody sends me a long doc, it's a lot easier for me to ask AI to summarize it for me first. Or in my I'm trying to recruit and hire. It's very efficient for me to write a small, skill that analyzes a resume against the job description and gives me good insight. So, like, you start to learn those little tips and tricks where you're using it almost everything you're doing as the course of the day. And the culture that we've created is we really want people to be trying to do that. Like, how do you work it into how you do everything you do every single day?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. I think a lot of folks started off with treating it like, just a simple search query. They treated Claude like Google, for lack of a better analogy. And what we're really trying to do is get folks to go beyond simple question and answer and to understand about, context prompting and getting all of your thinking correct, putting the guardrails up and really driving to these outcomes you're trying to achieve in more complex situations than just simply, can you tell me the best way to build this new thing I bought and the instructions are terrible? Like, it can do some really neat things on the most basic level, and most people know how to use it that way. But as we try to layer them up into solve more complex problems, there's guidance and help people need in order to get more from the various LLMs. And I think as Joel said, there's a culture change going on of not just saying, hey, we accept it, we encourage it, we require it. We want every one of you to be a strong, thoughtful, engaged user of AI. And that is constant education, training, access to people, demonstrations, like just showing people the art of the possible often triggers, how did you do that? And can you show me how to do that? I think we're really trying to drive this culture of curiosity, which, one of our core values has been adapt relentlessly. And I think we're seeing it right now in spades, really pushing folks to adapt to this remarkable capability that AI brings.
Well, since you've introduced this cultural shift and you've started getting folks on that educational path, is there one thing that you've seen, one use case or a reaction even that's been really surprising to you?
Are you asking from our employees, from our customers, who?
From employees, from folks internal to Pivotree, anything that's really kind of knocked your socks off? I won't say cool. I know you don't like that, but is there
Uh,
anything that's been surprising?
I'll tell you the first thing that surprised me is, something Joel highlighted a little while ago, which is I was surprised at the most senior levels of our organization, how quickly they became power users. I mean,
Mm.
we had folks starting to work on solving big complex problems at the highest levels of the organization, and were able to do some things that previously they might have needed IT or someone to help them with, but they were really driving aggressively into deploying these new skills and new capabilities. And that really gave me a lot of confidence, because if the senior folks are becoming power users, then that's going to cascade down through the organization. And so there was always that worry, that risk of, oh, it's going to be the young folks that really embrace this, and maybe our senior older people, might find it difficult learning. It was the exact opposite. I think we have virtually no resistance from our senior people, and we've got to continue working on showing folks this path forward and how it's going to benefit them. That was probably the biggest, most interesting takeaway, buy-in from the top.
For me, it's probably the if somebody, and we have some power users like Bill said, that that have very strong business sense or very strong understanding of a challenge they need to solve, and they don't necessarily have the technical capabilities. And we're starting to see that wall of not having the technical capabilities start to crumble down to the point where I've created sort of this matrix that kind of tells us, who's going to benefit the most from AI. And I put two things on the axis. One is really business knowledge or domain knowledge, and the other is technical capability. If somebody has very high domain knowledge and very high technical capability, we're really seeing those people in our organization. I'm calling them multipliers. Those are the people that can really get 10x efficiency or multiplier of like how much they can produce. But we're seeing people that have that really strong domain knowledge and maybe not that high technical knowledge, kind of seeing those people as visionaries. They have these ideas but they never knew how to bring them to life. And sometimes technical people can be gatekeepers where we're like, no, you can't do it that way. And we're not, sometimes we're horrible people that way. Like, we're just like, no, you got to do it the way I want it done, right? And AI starting to knock down that walls and put some of us very technical people back sort of on our tracks to say, for me, it's amazing because I'm like, that's cool, but that's amazing that somebody was able to bring that to life. Now, how do I help them get it to where it needs to be so that we can actually, reap the full value of it? And then what we're seeing some of on the very technical people, like, if they have high technical knowledge but they don't necessarily understand the business domain, some of those people are struggling. So one of the shifts we're going to have to make in our organization is our technical people, if they came from a purely technical role, they're going to have to start to learn more about, focus on those outcomes, understand the business domain, think about what the customer is trying to achieve, because that's what's going to move them to a multiplier where they're truly getting the value out of AI. And just being purely technical, I think that's where, if your intention is to stay purely technical, you're probably going to have some challenges over the years. So we have to train those technical people. You got to understand what the business objectives are. And then we help those purely domain knowledge people. How do we let our technical people help move them up in their technical knowledge?
I think that's a really, really important point you're making, which is it doesn't matter whether you're a senior technical person, a senior business person, AI is going to give you increased capabilities. And that's what we're seeing is our most senior people, senior architects, senior business leaders, AI is making them more productive, allowing them to get further without, short-term technical assistance. And so it's freeing, it's democratizing in some respects in order to get to outcomes. And as Joel said, like a senior technical person and a senior business person have a really good idea generally of the outcomes they're trying to get to, which is why AI can really amplify their capabilities. I think the biggest concern I have, and it's something Joel hinted at, and something I think we've got to figure out and take responsibility for, if those senior people are going to be in high demand well into the future, do we make sure that the young folks coming out of school who don't have this judgment yet, don't have domain expertise, how do we get them that training? Because some of the stuff that they used to do coming out of school was this lower level activity, the coding, the QA, some elements of it. The more commodity like processes is where they cut their teeth and they started to build judgment. And if we had one concern about, what is the next 10 years going to bring, it's going to be not for our experts because they've got domain expertise, but what's the next generation going to do to break in? Because there's not going to be a lot of work at the lower end of that hierarchy anymore. And so that's one we spend a lot of time now talking about, like what's our ethical and moral obligation to make sure there's space and room for young people to get into industry. And I don't think we have a good answer yet.
And that's where they get a lot of that business context too. It's kind of by osmosis as they're doing that. I don't want to call it lower level work, but the type of work that is, more replaceable by AI. So yeah, it's a good conversation to be having. And a lot of people have a lot of anxiety around it. I want to dig more into, Joel, I want to dig into your matrix. I want to talk about some of the real AI projects that are getting off the ground. That'll have to be a next time thing. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bill, Joel, any parting thoughts?
I would just go back to the original question, about our point of view. And our point of view is we're not automating our people out. We're building them up so that they can do only what they can do at a scale that wasn't possible before. So this is, again, really enabling real intelligence to hyperscale.
Yeah, my parting thought is right. We're still in early days. So, and, it's probably the most chaotic time that I've experienced in my career, like just how fast things are moving and the speed that things are moving. I think this just creates so much opportunity for everybody. So, as we try to get our arms around, where the world is going, I'd also be cautious, right? Like there's a lot of experts who are claiming where the world is going. I'm hesitant to try to make, and Bill is too, like we're hesitant to make predictions too far in the future, right? Like it's very difficult to do. And I caution people from trying to really predict where this is all going because it's just changing too fast.
Nobody knows, which is the scary part, but also the most exciting part.
It is.
Thank you.
It is the most exciting part.
Thank you so much. We'll catch you next time.
Right. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Data versus Commerce. New episodes drop weekly.
So if you're responsible for any part of how products get from a database to a doorstep, subscribe now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen.